everyone, and welcome to Nittany Game Week's Overtime, the week before Thanksgiving, as we're hitting the stretch run of Penn State's 2023 regular season. Of course, we're coming off the disappointing setback against Michigan. Look, you really had kind of a strange schedule, guys. Two elite opponents, so two opportunities to really do something on the national stage. I know a lot of the fans, the players, of course, coaches, everybody disappointed about the results. But as I mentioned, kind of a strange setup where you really didn't have a lot of other opportunities to kind of prove what kind of team you had. I mean, I know Iowa's climbing the college football rankings up to 16th, so obviously that win looks better and better every single week. But let's get into the Wolverines setback first. Let's go on the offensive side of things. Jay, we'll start with you. Look, some key moments. Anytime you have a close game against an elite opponent, you're going to have some key moments that it comes down to, and Michigan just got more of those than Penn State.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at the two-point conversion decision in the first half, seemed odd at that time, and then to not make it obviously set you behind a little bit. The two-point conversion after the second touchdown, again, you don't make it, and now you're still a two-score game. And then the fourth down decision, that's one of those ones, even in the moment, it did not feel – this isn't second-guessing. In the moment, it felt like your defense was playing pretty well. Michigan was not going to take any chances. You punt them down and get see if you can improve the field position. And you did, and Michigan made all three of those plays.
Couldn't agree more. I've never thought it was a good idea to ever chase points. And the way you were playing great defense, let your kicking game pin it. Let's see what they can do. Let them make a play. See if they can come up and make a play.
Yeah, and so look, when it comes down to these close games, those decisions, those things, they get magnified. Everything gets magnified in that particular situation. When you look at both Ohio State and the Michigan game, though, I think all of us can look at it and say they just did not execute well enough on offense. Of course, we're going to talk about Coach Chursich and that decision a little bit later here, but when you set up any game plan, it's going to look better when the players execute whatever play is called a little bit better. And for Drew Aller, I mean, you look at these two games combined, 28 of 64, 261 yards, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions, which is great. But to only have 70 yards passing on 10 completions and 22 attempts, it's literally just not good enough when you have a team that you face like Michigan.
Yeah, but at the end of the day, it's a one-score game in the fourth quarter, and that's all you can ask for at that point. At that point, then you've got to do something you got to get a turnover. You got to do something. The turnovers, Penn State has lived off the turnovers all year and scoring. And in this situation, Penn State turned the ball over. They were -1 in turnover margin and had the fourth down stop. Penn State's defense did not get a fourth down stop, did not get a turnover, had a chance early. So those are the things that make those games different. But I think Michigan made a very conscientious decision to run the football, just control the game. I don't think they ever felt like they were in any real danger, or I think you would have seen them turn J.J. McCarthy. I think it was a little bit of a, we've had all these distractions. We can control the line of scrimmage, and we're going to be content to win this thing by 9 or whatever. We're not worried about
Amazing. Only to see that quarterback throw it 8 times, Tom, and 32 straight runs as a defensive coordinator. You ever seen or been in a situation like that and for it to play out that way?
I've not been there, but I can tell you this. In those type of games, and I learned this a long time ago, those big games, it usually comes down to three or four plays. 3 or 4 plays make the difference in the game. When you look back, you can probably pinpoint those 3 or 4 plays. The other thing is once Michigan said, hey, we're just going to impose our will on you, and that's what they did. They just imposed their will. When you can run the ball that many times in a row, and they said, hey, we're not going to turn it over. We're not going to make a dumb decision and give you an easy one. We're content to run the ball, control the clock, and kick it and make you have a long field to play with.
And look, defensively, I thought they did an awesome job of holding firm and holding steady and trying to keep the offense in the game as they were trying to find their footing. Jay alluded to the decisions, not just at Ohio State with about 8 minutes left. Coach Franklin decided to punt it for fear of not getting the ball back in that situation and trailing from behind. This is obviously the reason why you want to be ahead in a game so you don't have to make these decisions. And then with 4.5 minutes to go, here's a team that's run the ball so many times in a row. I don't think they're in a situation where they're going to do anything complicated to hold on to that ball. You understand the aggressiveness part of it, but at the same time, the offense isn't doing what you need them to do. Maybe a regrouping there. So,
but
your thoughts on it.
To punt it and give them a long field and say, okay, let's see what you can do, because they might make a mistake too now. So sometimes you can't always just be chasing the points or we got to do this, or it's okay to punt and give them a long field and see what happens, because they might mess up and then you're getting the ball back again in even better field position. So a lot of times, I know patience is a virtue. It's hard sometimes as a coach to get all antsy, but you got to let the game play out as it is going to be.
Yeah, especially when the decision back backfires on you immediately. With the
It does,
run
when
that,
it doesn't work,
right,
then everybody
right.
complains.
Absolutely.
If it worked,
I mean,
everybody said so. That's what you live with.
Of course, you make a decision and you hope it works out. Obviously, there's a lot of factors involved in there, and for the next play to go for a touchdown.
But your defense is playing good. They're playing good football. Right. Punt it and be okay with it. It doesn't matter. Sometimes everybody gets antsy and just relax. Sometimes, hey, punt it, see what they can do. Maybe they're going to, get you to turnover.
I think in both situations too, the point that we've discussed and a lot of people have discussed is the fact that the opposing offense they're not going to be taking chances because your offense hasn't been doing anything. 0 for 15 on third downs, whatever it may be. And so you're asking your defense, really, they're going to be trying to eat timeouts and eat time, potentially. You're asking them to keep them from a first down or two and then get the ball back. Either way, it's not an ideal situation. It's just the way it's worked out.
One of the things that's hard, especially defensively, and having been there too, because I've been on that happened. When they're imposing the will on you and running the ball like that, it really is disheartening, because you're just standing over there and they're just taking it right to you. They're not playing games like say, we're going to line up and we're going to run the ball, stop us. And having been on that side before too, it's you watch and you're like, oh boy.
Yeah. One of the things we talked about last week was the way Michigan is patient and the way Michigan will grind you down. And having been down on the field for the first half, the first couple series when Michigan had the ball, Penn State's guys were flying around, getting the contact, and the contact was good. By the time it got late second quarter, I started to say, I was on the sideline with some of the Fox guys, I said, you're not seeing them come up quite as aggressively as they have been because it's becoming, it got to be really violent. And that's not a criticism, that's human nature.
Right.
And they started to wear him down a little bit. And so you saw that in the third and fourth quarter, they started to be able to run the ball. And you look at it, 112 total plays, offensive plays, snaps between the two teams combined. That's a really low number. Yeah. It was very deliberate.
Yep. Well, they put those big bodies on you. They start to wear you down.
But having seen that happen so many times at Penn State, when Penn State did that to people, when Penn State just wore them down and make them say, ouch, just play after play, say, we're going to run the ball, we're going to line up and run the ball, stop us.
All right, so beware the Scarlet Knights now. And we've heard it, seen it. Don't let a team beat you twice. Yep. You got to get yourself ready to go. Rutgers is coming to town. Greg Schiano knows what he's doing, especially on the defensive end. He's going to give Drew Aller even some more looks. He's certainly not going to play anything real basic for him to read real easily. This is a team that you have to fear when they come, and they're going to try and reduce the possessions just like Michigan did and try and make this thing stretch all the way to the fourth quarter, and then we see what happens.
Very similar setup. Quarterback, they're not throwing the ball particularly well, Rutgers, but they have a quarterback that can run, who's big. He's a physical runner. They've got the leading rusher in the Big Ten. And on the defensive side of the ball, they're in the top 20 in a number of defensive categories that would surprise people. So this can be, again, Penn State's going to want to get some turnovers. If Rutgers is careful with the football and doesn't turn it over, this could be a fourth quarter game. And that's going to come down to, somebody making a play somewhere.
But if Penn State jumps on them quick, the game's over because Rutgers doesn't have an offense that can get back in. It has to stay close. And if they can stay close, then they'll have Penn State where they want them by running the football and seeing where it goes from there. But if Penn State jumps them early, then they can't stay with them.
Yeah, Rutgers has seen some tough defenses in recent weeks, too, including Iowa last week.
And they're going to see one this week, too. Penn State's got a darn good defense, too.
Yes, they are. They got shut out last week. Okay, so let's move to the fan questions. Have a couple to go over. Obviously, a lot of fan feedback this week, as you can imagine.
We
picked
some of it we left at home. Thank goodness.
Yeah, I mean, we picked a couple that we can discuss.
Yeah.
Look, like I said, a lot of frustration. This is the way it goes. Strange setup when you had two big games, and both of them, they just did not perform very well, especially on the offensive end. Defenses were holding steady. Okay, first question comes from Paul. Correct me if I'm wrong, but it seems strange for Penn State to fire an assistant coach during the season. What are your thoughts on this?
I never like to see it during the season. I think you create your own drama for your team. I mean, I think one of the things that came up in the press conference on Monday, I want to talk about Rutgers. And it's like, well, you fired a coach yesterday. It's your first shot. So that's going to come up. And you don't want to create that kind of drama if you can avoid it. I mean, what the basis or rationale was for it, maybe we'll learn that in time. But it's certainly not something.
And I always look at the human side of it, too. Coach Jersey has children, I think 4, and he have
3 kids.
Three children. But
young kids.
Yeah, so a lot of times it's hard on the family too. Everybody forgets there is a human side to this football thing
Yeah,
too.
and look, as assistant coaches, you guys have, those are the situations with staffing and know people that this has happened to. I know for Coach Franklin, it was discussed about the timeline, and he said, look, if I know the situation's not going to work out, I have a hard time hiding the fact that it's not going to work out. So he made sure that he did it now, talked with everybody that he could talk to, including the quarterbacks, because, Coach Yursich recruited Drew Aller. Bo Prabula had already committed prior to that. And so, as Coach Franklin said, he wanted to talk to the kids, wanted to talk to their parents. Obviously, there's a lot of information that gets out there quickly, and you can't get in front of everyone that you want to. So from a timeline perspective, that was part of his rationale for making that happen. And now he's got a couple other assistant coaches, Coach Howell and Coach Sider, are going to step in and kind of work together on the game plan, and we'll see how that goes. So they'll get a trial run here in the next two games as you have Rutgers and then at Michigan State, that game will be in Detroit on the night of Black Friday. Okay, let's move to question number 2. It comes from Bill about alignment. Much has been made about the quote-unquote alignment of Penn State's administration and how important that is for football success. Given another failed year against both Michigan and Ohio State, is the solution more money and facilities, or is it something else?
Well, I think it's something else. I mean, the commitment of money has been there. Penn State is top 5 in football budget, top 5 in recruiting budget, top 5 in salary. So at some point, it goes to something else. And, what that is, whether they're a year away or whatever, we'll see. But it's certainly not a commitment of resources that's there.
Yeah, as you talk about all the time, every time you point the finger somewhere, the thumb's coming back at you. So, a lot of times you just have to accept the responsibility and say, we've got to do better to win these type of games.
Yeah, and I'm going to go back to what we said before. This is a strange year. You don't have, and that's why we're all looking forward to the 2024 schedule. Maybe there's a top 15 team.
Not everyone's looking forward to
I'm
that.
looking forward to it. I can tell you that much. But just from
fun.
The standpoint of being able to test yourselves against someone that's in the 10 to 15 to 20 range. I mean, look, one of the first things Coach said, and rightfully so, every year is its own year. I mean, you can look at all the stuff that happened in the past, but you had 2 teams in the top 5. One is currently 2, one is currently 3 in the college football rankings. Now, you know what these teams bring to the table. These aren't unfamiliar opponents. So you should be taking that into account as well. And one of the things that I look at is how are you losing these games? Not just that you're losing the games. It's how they're losing the games. And I don't think you can look at it and go, they're losing these games in the fourth quarter or whatever because of some of the things that align with alignment. Of course, it all goes into it. But it also goes all the way through until the clock hits 0 at the end of the game. And I think a lot of people's frustration is to the fact that, look, we're all in here, right? We're all in the building. We're loud. We're this and that. And the team just isn't getting the job done down the stretch, which is frustrating against 2 top 3 teams. Not easy to do in any given year. So, hence, all of the comments that we received, all the feedback that has been out there, you sift through and you move on to Rutgers. All right, last question from Laura. No passing zone. Can you ever remember a game when the other team just stopped passing the ball? Why do you think Michigan did that, Tom?
Because they knew they could control the game that way. They did not want to turn it over and take a chance with the quarterback in that situation. They're saying, okay, make them stop us, because we're doing fine with the ball. We're controlling the clock. We're going to make this into where it's a 2-score game. Yeah. And once they get into a 2-score territory, then you've got them saying, okay, they're going to have to take the chance. Now, they didn't have to do that. So they were able to control the ball, control the clock, and that's what they wanted to do.
I can't remember anybody doing that to us, but, we played Texas in the Fiesta Bowl after the 96 season. And we came in halftime, and we knew we could just – and I think we threw 5, maybe 4 passes the whole second half, but we ran the ball pretty much every down. And if you can do that, there's not a coach in the country that won't go along with that. Even Mike Leach, if he was, God rest his soul, if he was here, if he could run the ball every down and win the games, he'd run the ball every down. And win
I don't want to say that didn't happen because I'm sure there's somewhere along the play whether when we played Oklahoma, they didn't throw
the ball anyway.
They didn't throw the ball.
Sure, Nebraska in the past.
Yeah, there's always somebody. So I don't want to act like it never happened because it does. Sometimes the other team's going to impose their will on you too. Yep. And it's just the way the game works.
Yep, game plan, all that kind of stuff. And again, it becomes situational. If you're ahead, you're behind, all that type of stuff. There's a lot of people that look at Michigan running the ball 32 straight times as a disrespect for Penn State's offense. I don't know. I think just they didn't have a lot of confidence that Penn State was going to score. If you want to use that word, use that word. You can also say it's a lot of respect for the defense to say, look, we don't want to chance it. They've created a lot of turnovers. We don't want to put the ball in the air. We want to play it safe because we don't think the offense is going to be able to move the ball on our defense.
I also think, your interim coach was your offensive coordinator, is your offensive line coach. And with all the things that happened on Friday and Saturday morning, probably said, you know what, this is the shortest distance between 2 points is run the ball without all these distractions. Let's go. And you know what?
And that's what he felt comfortable. He feels comfortable running the ball.
You didn't see J.J. McCarthy pouting because he wasn't throwing the ball, and he got dinged up a little bit too. I mean, it may have played. His ankle may have played into it.
That was a hard-fought physical game, and Penn State gave it all they had. That's the one thing you cannot question is the kids' effort. Man, they're out there playing hard. They want to win as much as anybody out there, and they'll just retool. They'll go to the offseason and they'll give it another whirl.
I just said it earlier. Those games come down to three, four, 5 plays. You look back and if we made a play here, the game could have been completely different.
Yep. So you got to take a look at it. Disappointing, but you move on. You try and get that win number 9 and then win number 10 after that if you can knock off Rutgers. All right, so we're going to set up and get ready for Shafi Fields, who's our Impact interview guest for this week, a former wide receiver, and he's got a really interesting career after his football playing days as he assists others in the world of sports as an agent. So we'll talk with Shafi about that, and we'll discuss some other things as we get headed towards the holidays, but episode number 13 of Nittany Game Week. So thanks for joining us for Overtime. For Tom Bradley and Jay Paterno, I'm Todd Sadowski. We'll see you next time.